You know, if I'm honest, there's a real sense of tension that I feel around the holidays, a kind of a conflicted spirit about the whole Christmas season. That, on one sense, there's this kind of this sense of busyness and hustle and bustle, and with the holiday preparations and with shopping for gifts, and a general pressure within the culture to kind of get happy. This is the time to just, regardless of what's going on, we should just get happy. And yet at the same time, I feel that underneath all of this, I really do sense an ache of my soul. That underneath all of the tinsel and lights and all the craziness that goes on this time of year, there is a longing in my heart that aches for something more. And it's this awareness of the deep ache of our soul that I really believe is at the very heart and the spirit of Advent. That Advent is all about being present with that ache, rather than just distracting ourselves from it, rather than just trying to get happy and kind of, numb ourselves with sugar and television and cheesy carols on Coit FM. Nothing wrong with all that stuff, but to really make some space to be present with the real ache of our soul and to press in with that to the incarnation. You see, while I love doing this, building this Lego scene, as you can tell, a few more things have been added this last week, and each day Gregory and I pull out a new piece. And while this is a lot of fun and it's a great way to kind of retell the story of the Nativity, the truth is there's a danger here. There's a real danger in what we're doing right here. See, it's great and it's needed to retell the story again, but there's a danger to see the whole Nativity and to see the whole birth of Christ as basically a cute little sentimental story we tell once a year that can kind of, give us some warm fuzzies, kind of the same way like if we drink a nice cup of hot cocoa on a cold day, that this can just be a nice sentimental yearly story we tell, and that's it. And yet it's very possible to kind of tell the story and yet miss the real point of it, to miss the depth and the transformative power of not just knowing the story, but knowing the Jesus that is born here, to really know him intimately and the type of power and transformation that brings to the deep ache of the human soul. I've been struggling in these last few weeks. I think if I really had to narrow it down, what I've been trying to do in these videos for these last few weeks is to really articulate this spirit of Advent, that it's more than just retelling the Christmas story. While that's needed, this is a real historical event that happened, and our faith is based upon real events in history. We're trying to do something more than just tell a story. Advent is about bringing the deep ache of my soul to the truth of the incarnation. Much more than just knowing about Jesus, Advent is about actually experiencing Emmanuel. It's about knowing Jesus, who is God in the flesh and whose appearance brings real, life-transforming hope and answers to the deepest longings, questions, and ache of the human heart. Now, that's really what I think Advent's all about. There's endless ways I think we can show. We could go to the Bible in endless ways that we could just look at different scriptures and show how Jesus comes and points and addresses the deep ache of our soul. But one that I've been sitting with this week that I want to share this morning comes from Psalm 103. This is a psalm that I have a men's Bible study on Friday, and this is the psalm we're studying this week. So I've been meditating upon this, praying over this psalm, and it is just speaking to me so much. While it doesn't directly talk about Christmas per se, it really is. It really is about the incarnation. It really is about the Jesus that's going to be born and who was born 2,000 years ago in this manger. And so I'm just going to read the first 5 verses. I'll start with verses 1 and 2, where this is a psalm of David, and David writes in Psalm 103, verses 1 and 2, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. You know, notice what David, how he starts here. He's not just talking about the story of God, but rather he's pressing in. He says, "Oh, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me." David is not just a head knowledge and awareness to a story, but he's pressing in with all that is within me, all my heart, soul, and mind, to press in to the story of God. And his desire is to not forget all of the benefits there are in knowing the Lord. Oh, Lord, I want to press in with all that I am, because there is benefit in really knowing you, not just knowing about you, but pressing in and experiencing you. There is transformative power for living. There is real hope for the ache of the human condition. And we need to press into that. And this was David doing in Psalm 103. So now the question is, well, what are the benefits? What are these benefits that David wants to make sure he doesn't forget? And look what he says here in verse 3. It's God who, in verse 3, forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies you with good, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. I mean, that is just an amazing, amazing list that David rattles off there. And he says, I don't want to forget these things, because this is what really happens to a human being when they come and behold the wondrous glory of who God is and press in to know him. And that this is who God is for us. We are made to be satisfied by God alone. And he comes and addresses the deepest aches of our hearts, of forgiveness, of healing, of being redeemed, of being crowned with steadfast love and mercy, of this renewed dignity that comes to be satisfied deep in our souls with goodness. And then through all of that, we're renewed. Our youth is renewed. We're made alive again. I mean, just what David is talking about here is so much more than just kind of knowing a cute little Hallmark story. He says you can come and know God. And so the question is, I mean, this is an amazing list in Psalm 103. I mean, I don't know of anybody who wouldn't say, yeah, that is what my heart is longing for. The question is, how did God actually do this work? What is God's plan to make these kind of benefits a reality in our humanity? And the answer to that is found right here. Well, it's actually found 2,000 years ago in the real Bethlehem, in the real manger, when Jesus was born. As you read through the Gospels, as starting, with the birth of Christ, and throughout all the Gospels, his life, his death, his resurrection, you see that everything that David has mentioned here in Psalm 103 is addressed directly by the person and the work of Jesus Christ. It is Jesus who has come to forgive us of all our iniquity. That was God's plan to do, and how he was going to do it. It was Jesus who comes and heals us deep within and heals all our diseases. You see that throughout the Gospels. It is Jesus who comes to redeem our lives. By his resurrection, we get to get born again to a living hope, it says in 1 Peter. And it's because of Jesus that because of that, not only are we forgiven, but we're loved and accepted, and we're crowned with a new dignity, a new redemption of his mercy and steadfast love for us. And he satisfies us what the world can never do. God comes through Jesus to satisfy us with good, so that our youth is renewed like the eagles. One verse that I was just thinking of is this, to see, and there's many verses that talk about this, but that all of God's promises are fulfilled here at Christmas. And this is what Advent is about, is pressing into this story to see the deepest aches of my heart and all the promises of God meet perfectly right here in this manger, and ultimately will meet perfectly on the cross. But I was just thinking of this verse, 2 Corinthians 1, 19 through 20. The Apostle Paul writes this: "For the Son of God, Jesus Christ, whom we proclaimed among you, Silvanus and Timothy and I, was not yes and no, but in him it is always yes. For all the promises of God find their yes in him. That is why it is through him that we utter our amen to God for his glory." Well, amen, Good News Chapel. My prayer for us in this last week leading up to Christmas Day, this season of Advent, is that we would all be pressing in to the story, not just to kind of have a sentimental view of it, but to press into the Christ who was born there and to forget not all his benefits, that we would actually experience Emmanuel, even in a year like 2020, that there is great hope and great power for the human condition. God bless. Amen.